Should be just a second here. Let's get this changed over. And I'll go ahead and restart stream here. Make sure we are actually live. There we are. All right. So, welcome to Fireside Chat number 88. So stuff going on this week. We have had the Vet Vigor going on. That's going to be going on until January 1st is the last day you can send out challenges. So not that much time left, actually, just 5 days. So you want to get those done as soon as possible. You do get an extra week after the 1st to complete any outstanding challenges before they are. There will be penalties assessed. So make sure if you've got outstanding challenges, get those done. If you can't find a way to get it done, let me know so we can get it figured out. Figure out if there's a penalty that needs to be assessed or if it just needs to be canceled with no penalty. That kind of situation, let me know as soon as possible if you're having any kind of issues with getting the challenge done. And otherwise, yes, try to get them done as soon as possible and try to issue any if you do want to make sure you're in that top 12. Top 12 will be featured in a WA song, as I said before. It should be a lot of fun. And then additionally, we do have, let's see. Yeah, talk about the vigor. What about that? Well, we do have the end of the month coming up here, so that's kind of our reporting period, basically, where every warband has to write a warband report. They do their warband review, where they review every member of their warband, and of course the great company situation reports. And my setup for the warbands under me go out and are due by the 4th, and then the 5th we have the Jarl rotation go through. We'll have new Jarls for January. Companions of Aegir. We're going to have Steinir, and it would go back to Kusiag for the Guardians of Ran. However, worth noting, there could be some significant shakeups in terms of organization based on a lot of warbands not meeting expectations for this month and the previous month, November. So essentially what that means is that those warbands who are failing expectations under a great company will be moved under me to the host of the High King, where the expectations are less strict. So there's not as much required of those warbands in terms of the biggest thing is the activity requirements are half as much. So as opposed to, for example, 4 messages, it's 2 messages, 4 hours in voice, 2 hours in voice, those kind of things. And additionally, to be a warband in a great company, there's a requirement that you need 10 active members at minimum. So most warbands have fallen below that, and failing expectations 2 times in a row or 3 times in a 6-month period is what moves that warband down to being under me. Now, it doesn't mean the warband is going to be decommissioned and removed. That's possible if people want to decommission the warband, but it doesn't mean that that would necessarily be forced upon them, anything like that. Because, as I said, the expectations are much less strict under me, so generally speaking, it's difficult for a warband to actually be removed from the clan by the regulations alone. Obviously, it can be done for logistical reasons or just because it makes more sense to move warbands around, open and close them, various stuff like that. While I'm on that subject, I'll jump on to the fact that we do have a Court of the High King here in under 30 minutes. It's going to be at 5:30 p.m. PST, right here in Haller. And basically, I'm inviting everyone to participate, but especially officers. Obviously, everyone's always welcome to attend Court of the High Kings, but this one in particular, I do want to talk about warband organization and the future of warbands and warband status. All of that, just all about warbands, because basically there are going to be a lot of big changes. Like I said, currently information I have indicates that Kolga's Frostguard and Un's Favored will both be moved under me, leaving only Simmerbrander's Destiny and the Guardians of Ran Great Company. The problem is a Great Company requires at least 2 warbands. Now, I'm pending some more information on Frigg's Fate Weavers and Hell's Raiders and Kvasir's Composers. Well, I know Kvasir's Composers is fine. They're meeting all expectations. So Hells and Friggs, I need to see the finished warband reviews and warband reports posted from those so I can verify that they are meeting expectations this month to ensure they won't be moved under me as well. But likely what will happen, the most likely scenario at least, is Simmerbrander's Destiny will be moved under the Companions of Aegir, and Guardians of Ran will be closed for the foreseeable future. Because you do need those 2 warbands. But given that this is a lot of pretty significant movement, I did want to have a Court of the High King that was more like I said, really encourage people to show up, especially officers, so we can really get talking about the state of warbands, what we want to do about the situation we're in right now with regards to most of the warbands. Getting smaller, being under me, how we want to organize that, whether we want to combine some warbands, various things. There's a lot of different directions we can go in, so I wanted to talk to everybody, get a lot of opinions on that, see if anybody's got any ideas, that kind of thing. Going hand in hand with that, I also want to discuss the way warbands are set up. So right now, what a warband is, and I'll go over this in Court of the High King as well. But a warband right now is a group of members that play generally 1 to 2 games, ideally, and essentially they play them together. They are actively playing them with one another. They are active members of WA, etc., etc. And that is the idea of a warband right now. But the problem we are having is that some warbands, for example, right now are even close to activity requirements, but they aren't playing the same games, or they're not playing them together, or they're even playing single-player games. Various things. It's just kind of the state we find ourselves in, based on just things have changed in 18 years and 18 and a half years since this clan was founded, and we're not all just playing on StarCraft together anymore. We're on Discord now. People play a ton of different games. It's easier for us to stay connected through Discord because you can have text chat. You can have people that don't even play the same games at all hanging out together and communicating. But the problem is then, how do we organize ourselves? Now, myself, I'm not willing to look really too closely at just houses and families. To me, I think it's kind of essential to organization that we have houses and families on the one side, and on the other side, we have a system of organization that utilizes the chain of command, our ranks. That's how rules are enforced. That's where the power and responsibility is concentrated. Not to say being a lord, for example, doesn't have responsibilities, but is much less so. It's much more low key. It's much more of a sort of ceremonial position, with some things like you should be maintaining traditions for your house. You should be maintaining a lineage chart. Those kinds of things. But I digress. The point is that we're looking for a system like warbands and great companies, that will be an instrument for our ranks and the chain of command. Essentially, the default way that we are organized. The first thing will generally explain to new recruits. That's what we're looking for. So I'm not going to say that we're going to have a new era and a complete overhaul organization or anything like that, but I am remaining really open-minded here because I think looking around, you have to say that a lot of the warbands are really struggling, and if they aren't struggling, they are at least failing to meet expectations in great companies, and with so many of our warbands moving to under me, essentially it means I think we just have to take a good hard look at it. I think that's pretty evident to everybody, and so I'm kind of open to any solutions, but I think one thing we have to look at is the definition of a warband. You can go back to when warbands were first created in March of 2018, when they were enacted, rather, they were created over the previous months, with discussions in the All Thing and the Knights. We put together the handbook, and that this Viking system that we've been using ever since then, in the 1 year and 9 months since then, rather, and essentially the idea was initially that warbands were just a way to divide up members for purposes of ranks, chain of command, etc., etc. And there were questions in terms of people saying, well, what's the point then? People didn't follow that there needed to be some way for power and responsibility and chain of command and ranks and our organization to all be grounded in a system like that, a way of dividing up members rather than just a body of members with no organization, which really, I can tell you, it doesn't really work because when you have officer positions, like for example, look at Jarl and look at warband leaders, each of those positions are in charge of a certain subdivision of our clan. Now, it's important that they know who they're in charge of, and it's clear to everybody involved, because if we're just one big body of members, it's really hard for anybody to see who is in charge of what. If you have, do we have a clan-wide roll call? Who is in charge of doing that? Becomes a huge burden, for example, if you have to do everything for every member. It's harder to just divvy it up between people. It's much easier if we have subdivisions for the clan and we can divide up officers between them, as we've been doing for essentially 18 and a half plus years. So that is kind of the idea is of warbands at great companies, but they developed from just being purely subdivisions to also being game focused, like platoons were. For a long time at WA, you had a StarCraft platoon, you had a World of Warcraft platoon, we had a League of Legends platoon, and so on and so forth. And each of those served the purpose of okay, this is our base of operations on League. The problem with that currently is that if you had a StarCraft platoon now, it's hard to get, say, everybody playing StarCraft and that's all they do because it just doesn't really work like that now. Things are very interconnected. People play a lot of different games. They might play one game for a week and then never play it again. So it becomes a lot more challenging to organize ourselves by game specifically. But we did it for the sake of convenience for warbands to give them more of a purpose, um, more of a clear-cut identity than just units of chain of command. Because, at the top of the chain of command, it's easy for officers to see the purpose of warbands, regardless of if they're game-based or not. But for a brand new member, it's much more difficult if they aren't game-based, because you join the clan and you look and you say, well, okay, let's look at this warband. Frigg's Fate Weavers. Okay, what is this? Well, they're associated with Frigg. Here's their flag. Um, these are the members in it. And it's kind of like, okay, I don't know who Frigg is. I don't know anything about Norse, identities or stuff. I know what Vikings are. That's about it. It seemed cool, but I don't know what that means. And to show them every other warband, here's the flag, here's the deity, here's the name, here's the people, doesn't mean anything to anybody who just joins the clan. So therein lies kind of the central, parts of the issue that we kind of have to grapple with is how do we organize ourselves with these warbands. And I think that game warbands have uh, worked to some degree in some situations, but overall, I would say right now they're not really working, at least based upon the guidelines and expectations we have. Like I said, so many warbands are failing expectations, and there's a lot of aspects to it too. There's duties that have to be done for every warband, and they should be done quickly. They should be done in advance of the deadline. They should be done in detail correctly. People should be reaching out. There should be communication. There's just been a huge lack of that across the board. And I mean, it's disappointing, but regardless, it is what it is. And I think that's an aspect of it too. So you can say, well, if we just clean up everything, if everyone just does their job on time, does it perfectly, things will be better. Yes, but I think that's not everything. There's also a sense of, I think, warbands are also kind of failing their officers as an institution to some degree, at least in their current state. So I think, like I said, I'm open to a lot of solutions, and again, I know this is a lot. I'll go over this in Court of the High King, but the main topic is war bands, and the question is, how can we create uh, war bands, we'll call them, or divisions or platoons, we'll call them subdivisions of the clan. How can we divide ourselves up into groups that are instruments of the chain of command, that it's obvious to new members what the purpose is, and it's also possible, likely, even easy for them to succeed as units. We want to make that happen, essentially. And it may be that, I mean, there's lots of, like I said before, there's lots of directions we can go. And it may be that if we sit down and we simply find a way to, whether it's, promoting different people or just getting people to put in more work, if we just get people to do everything in their job description, all the duties, do them on time, do them quickly, do them even more than they need to, more often than they need to, just showcase some kind of, if they're passionate about the warband, putting in that time. And it's not even that much that is asked of people, but that is what I'm asking of every officer in every warband is that all this stuff gets done, and it gets done quickly and clearly, and people read the announcements, read the all thing, read the handbook, and know it back to front. Anyone Raider up should really know the handbook super well. Now, I don't have every word of the handbook memorized, but you should at least have read it at least once or something. So, hey, if you have to, look stuff up, that's totally fine. But at least go through the trouble of reading it and looking stuff up is essentially the point. The idea that if something is mentioned to you, like say I mentioned boards of review, or sorry, not boards of review, warband reviews. Even I'm still getting used to the new lingo, I guess. So, but that said, the idea is, let's say I mentioned warband reviews. Would you know where in the handbook to go to read about those in detail? Because it's specified exactly how those are done in the handbook. So that's the idea, is that if a topic like that is mentioned, you know where to look in the handbook. And I think that would just come with having read it once or twice. And especially now, if there's a change to the handbook, I post patch notes, basically, exactly the changes that are happening. And if there's something I need done specifically that's different, I always post the all thing and I ping everybody. So I think the communication is there coming from the top. I just need everybody to be doing their jobs and doing their duties and doing them on time. And if people aren't sure, I always encourage people to message me and ask me, ping me, whatever. Just say, hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with this particular one, but everything that needs to get done is listed, how to do it, when to do it, etc. So um, the expectation is that it just gets done. And if it doesn't get done, then people get demoted. That's basically what the handbook says. It's not a super happy thing, but that's just the idea is that it should be. It doesn't take that much time to do this stuff. I mean, I just sat down and did the warband reviews for 2 different warbands last night in about 30 minutes, um, and figured out the promotions, demotions, etc. Writing reports should take you maybe 30 minutes. I mean, and this is something that happens once a month. And I mean, it's not as fun as playing a video game, probably for most people, but that's kind of what being an officer is, and stepping up and having these duties and responsibilities is sometimes you just, you know, have to go do it, and especially getting it done in advance, especially this month and the previous month, when you've got, for example, uh, you know, holidays and stuff like that going on. It's even better to get it done far in advance because if you know you're not going to have time to do it, just get it done in advance. And it's not even like because then you get to the 31st or whatever, and it's like, okay, you can do it then. You're still fine. The deadline isn't till the first. But what if something happens? What if something comes up? Then you're totally screwed because you don't have any window whatsoever. And you're also kind of messing with the whole chain of command because I have to go and read all these reports. You always have to go and read the reports, and if they have to read it the last second, it's making it harder on them. They have less time to do it. So it's all part of the whole system. Just kind of my rant on doing duties and whatnot. But anyways, the point of the Court of the High King we'll be having, like I said here in about 13 minutes, is we want to be discussing warbands and what we can do about them, and what we can do in terms of how the clan is organized in our chain of command to create subdivisions that work in terms of people getting their jobs done and in terms of just succeeding, in terms of being active, looking at the expectations we have now, etc. So basically, yeah, that's going to be the plan. Already talked about Vet Vigor. I did have Yule pass and Christmas, so Merry Christmas, late Christmas to anybody, and Happy Yule as well. We had that pass too. We had Secret Odin, which is fun. We got to share all our gifts and everything like that. If you still haven't received one, do let me know. I believe if you haven't received one, yeah, do double check with me because I also we have been giving out replacement gifts to people who didn't receive one. They are, of course, unfortunately late, but they have gone out. To my knowledge, everyone that I've been informed of that didn't receive one. And if you have a Secret Odin and you haven't given them the gift and it's late, you should have let me know. But let me know now, and if there's some extenuating circumstances, but generally speaking, we gave like 2 or 3 months for all this stuff, so if you didn't get it done, probably we're unfortunately not going to let you participate next year because the idea is that you can take care of this stuff way in advance, and even if if something comes up, you should let us know as soon as possible, so that at least if you let us know in advance, it's not a problem. If just no word comes out and then bam, it's just no gift. It's just a huge bummer for somebody else who signed up and then sent out a gift and just doesn't get anything. So, yeah. Anyways, reach out to me any issues about Secret Odin or Kusiag. As far as other stuff going on, let's see here. A couple tiny updates of the handbook will be coming out at the end of the month. Mostly just how officers do stuff like Warband reviews, just some details to that. Very small changes. I'll list some announcements when I post them, but nothing crazy really. Just some extra information. And 2 more things I've talked about previously that I want to work on. This is probably stuff for next year. But essentially, I want to create officer school for some kind of certification for being an officer, and also some kind of certification for recruiting people, and writing up those tests, probably with the help of, we'll see, officers or maybe the Historians Guild. It's something that's on the back burner because I want to finish the Yule song first, get that done so it's good for the Vet Vigor finish soon after I can get it out. And then that'll be the next thing, and we'll be doing some more codex work, ideally. Would love it if anyone in Historians Guild gets a chance, writes more codex entries. That is a huge help. It takes time to write them now. They're more detailed than they used to be back in the day, and we've got 150 or more member entries that all need to be updated in addition to other entries and just creating new ones. There's a ton of work to be done. If you're interested in helping out with that stuff, hit me up. Welcome to join the Scribes or Historians Guild. Used to be the Scribes Guild. So yeah, I think that is the last thing here. I'll just remind everyone this is just an officer announcement. I pinged everyone in all thing to let people know, but as a heads up, um, I'd like our new policy to be that the roles are changed for promotions and demotions on the first when the Warband report goes out. If the Warband report goes out early, you can change them then. But the idea is once that report is posted and you've got the approval of your Jarl and whatnot, that then, or me, if you're under me, then you go and we can go change those roles. And the Jarl can help you change roles if you need to, if you don't have the permissions or whatever. But the idea is that you go and then post and congratulate people in your Warband chat too. It's just, hey, congratulations, so and so Ling on your promotion to Warrior or Raider or whatever. Um, and yeah, you post that, let them know, congratulate them. Everyone can celebrate there and change the rules right then. So you don't have to wait until the great company report, the situation reports come out. It's just when that Warband review is done, and then when you post the Warband report on the forums, you can post a link to it in your Warband chat, and then ping the people you're congratulating on promotions, and there you go. So that's the procedure now. I already let people know about that in the all thing, but just in case, a reminder on that. So yeah, deadline's coming up. Hope to see some all Warband reports coming in as soon as possible. I did ask if they be done far in advance of the deadline, given the holidays and whatnot, and especially, as I said close to the start of Fireside, we do have some big changes that are going to have to happen, at least in terms of moving warbands around, because we have a lot failing expectations or otherwise not being not working, I guess. And so some are going to have to be moved around, moved under me. Great companies, like I said, Guardians of Ran is in a rough spot here, so we'll see exactly. But I want to talk about that here in Fireside Chat. We've got about 8 minutes, or sorry, Court of the Hiking, about 8 minutes out now. And as well, if you do miss this and you happen to hear this Fireside Chat or Court of the Hiking and want to reach out to me about any questions or ideas about any of that stuff with warbands, totally do it. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And in addition, we do have. I completely lost my train of thought on that, actually. Yeah, we're going to be talking about warbands and warband movement and possibly changes to the way the clan is organized in terms of warbands. And yeah, oh, yeah, that's right. The one more thing. If you haven't posted your warband report yet, or even done the warband review, please get that done as soon as you possibly can. I really need to know the exact status of every single warband in terms of passing expectations or not, so that we can accurately figure out what movement to make with warbands as soon as possible so it's ready to go. Yeah, with that in mind, thanks anyone watching live or watching the VOD. This was Fireside Chat number 88. We'll be back with number 89 next week, Thursday. It is January 2nd, that'll be at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as well, we do have Court of the High King coming up here in 7 minutes, so make sure to show up to that. I'll announce the times for Court of the High King next week. I'll try to go back to 2 per week as I was doing before. It's just been a busy week, really, and with the holidays and whatnot. So, yeah, we'll see everybody next time.